Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, August 21st. The Code Geass crossover is pretty much over now. And now they have added a new storyline element, which does imply to me that the one storyline challenge that I got stuck on was probably the last battle that was available until this point. So now we have this new story Fate's Trigger release bonus that we're getting for daily logins, or at least the way I think these bonuses work is that an event happens for more than 5 days, and if you log in 5 days during that event, you get these extra card pack releases. But they're giving you Fortune's Hand cards, and we know the next expansion is expanded card sets for Fortune's Hand, so I wouldn't suspect that Fate's Trigger is going to be the next expansion, but there might be in the next expansion 3 to 5 months from now Fate's Trigger type cards. And from the looks of it, it looks like it is a half magical, half car based world, which would kind of make some sense. There's actually quite a lot of cards like that, where you have car-based things. The Code Geass leader skins are still on sale, and I don't think that they're going to change. And we now have new add-on cards, which I imagine that would clicking on this would just probably take me to a new website, and we have new story arc and new leaders. So what else new do we have? Not a lot. They seem to always promote their YouTube and all of that. So yeah, there's just a whole new category here, which is not a broken down category where you're going to play as different leaders. It's just a straight single combined group episode. So I'm stuck probably on the last battle with Invasion of the World Reaver. I probably could jump over and do Fate's Trigger, but I imagine these challenges are super hard and for expert level characters, and I'm still just working on the daily quest stuff, which has now been moved down by one. So there's still a lot of off-screen stuff that I need to do. I was also given a crate. So we have 5 card packs and 12 days to claim those card pack tickets. And if we click not on cards, but shop, let's see. Leaders. Do we have any new leaders to buy? No, we don't. It's still all the old leaders. Although, at a certain point, it probably could just buy all of this. I really am sitting on enough gold to do something that crazy, but I probably shouldn't. And I don't think we have any new sleeves either. Yeah, it seems like they kept the sleeves somewhat infrequent. So then that just leaves us with buying cards, and we have some new packs to buy. And see, we have 8 tickets for Fortune's Hand, or we have this expansion that would require a 1,000 premium currency. But the Fortune's Hand add-on here is different. Like, now, these are different cards somewhat than what this was, which was the original Fortune's Hand. No, these actually are the same cards. So a pack containing 8 cards, including at least 1 silver legendary card. Newly added additional cards will appear at a higher rate. A pack containing 8 cards, including at least a silver legendary card. And in this beauty, we have the same tradables. So the system actually seems like it would work fairly well. But it still wouldn't really get me to 400. Like, even if I spent all of my gold at 100 rupees each, still I'm not going to be anywhere close to 400. But yeah, let's just max this out. 8 packs. Now is the time to do this. We'll be looking for new cards, and we'll obviously get new cards, and hopefully that'll let me tweak my unlimited decks and possibly even open a door for me to have rotation decks. Well, so far that was a complete bust. None of these cards are new. I've seen all of them. So that did absolutely nothing. This might be new, but I don't think so. None of these other cards are new. So 2 packs. Well, this is going to be anticlimactic. This might be new, but I don't think so. Nothing else could be. How many new cards did they add? Just like 10? None of those are new. We're now halfway through. I'm getting concerned. I may have just been really screwed over. I guess it still would have been the right move to do. Burning Constrictor might be new. I may not have had this card before, but I don't think it's new. This might be new, or at least the animated version of it might be new to me. But yeah, everything else is not new. And now we have like 3 golds handed to us on the last pick. Man, there must have been some kind of pity timer in this system. Yeah, I don't have inverted manipulator. Put a puppet in your hand, give your leader the following effect until the end of the turn. Whenever an allied puppet comes into play, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. If there's no followers in play, deal 2 damage to the enemy leader. This effect is not stackable. All of a sudden, this makes my puppet deck concept actually playable. Because that's like a in-turn, in-game, or at least game-changing effect. Accelerate for Tomb, summon an Earth Essence, play, put a 7-point alchemical crafts chief without Accelerate in your hand, subtract X cost from it, X equals the number of allied sigils, amulets in play. So if you played a heavy allied sigil deck, you could reduce the cost of this quite a bit. It has ward and it deals 4 damage to the enemy. This really would very much come down to how many Earth Sigils you have, where is Earth Essence that, like, Earth Essence is an Earth Sigil card, so there's some slight confusion around the name there. Put in your hand copies of the 3 leftmost cards in your hand in that order they were added. I had at least one of these before, so maybe I have a second copy of that now. And may have a second copy of this card now. I'm still not really making up for the other packs, though. If I opened 8 packs and I got 3 gold cards that I didn't have before, I really feel like even with the new expansion, I've hit a point where I have so many of the cards except for the really 1% chance of drawing cards. I think I have this card. I'm pretty sure I have everything else. So, what just happened there? I'm just like dumbfounded. So we opened 8 packs with 8 cards. That should have been 64 cards. Adding together the silver and bronze extras we have, that is 56 cards. So there literally was only 8 cards of one pack out of that 8 that had anything new. And we've got some vials. Let's come over here. Let's see fortune. And let's see what is new. Because there clearly is some new stuff here. Like Night Screech I've never seen before. Temple of Heresy I've never seen before. So that's 2. And then 3, 4, 5. These feel like these are all new cards. Although I could be wrong about that. And then First Resurrection would be 6 of what we don't have. Some of these were available, but I'm not sure how many of them were. 7, 8, 9. I think this was available previously. 10. I assume, you can pretty much assume that if it's a magic spell and it's not a like legendary card, that's new. Yeah, there's a lot of cards here, so I don't understand why I didn't get more. The percentage numbers must be investigated here, because there's some BS here. Like either the new cards drop at like 2% rate if they're a legendary versus a 1% rate, which still is a ridiculously low rate. Particularly when you come down to the thought that you could still have like 2 of the platinum tier like cards in a deck. It's not like you can only have 1 in the deck of anything, where that would make a lot more sense. So I got 1 copy of this, which was new. We haven't seen any other new indicators. So did I literally only get 1 new card? Or I probably got some animated versions of some things also, but yeah, that's fairly irritating to say the least, that they're just gonna expand on the card expansion in such a way that it's giving you this extra reason to go back and waste more money. Unless what I did here, and this wouldn't have made any sense at all, is if I accidentally clicked here and then clicked that, which that wouldn't make any sense. No, I was here. So draw rates. Open up that website and let's just look. So Legendaries, bronze to legendary, have a 1.5% drop rate, and then for cards 1 through 7, and a 1.5% drop rate for the 8th card, which just removes the rates of bronze and then puts practically all of the percentage points that you had a chance of getting a bronze into getting a silver. And then there seems to be a 0.04% chance of getting any specific card, although those odds seem to randomly change. And then older cards are getting 0.01% chances to get any specific card. So yeah, the odds are low. Like, when you actually look at the percentage odds, this is really, really low. I would not go to any kind of gambling mechanic and say 0.04%. So add a couple zeros to that when you think a chance of potentially getting the one thing you want. That seems really, really like too little as far as your odds are. I also am, to get into the accountability section, focusing more on playing other games. So I've been playing, I tried to play a game called Camera Obscura and rage quit after 45 minutes because it was just not well designed. Okay, apparently I need to get some victories here, which I think that works perfectly fine, and there's no real deck rebuilds to make, so we'll just go ahead and get that. I don't know where you're gonna get the new leaders. That's an interesting thought, because they said there was going to be new leaders based on Fate's Trigger, which means to me you must unlock those leaders by doing the Fate's Trigger main story, which I'm not willing to touch until I can beat the World Reaver Invasion story before it.
Time for me to prove myself.
So yeah, Camera Obscura was an ugly game that looked like a NES game, maybe Super NES if you really squint. It had seemingly only one type of enemy, which were slimes, and that you barely did anything. You had no weapon. You were platforming, but not really platforming so much as you were taking pictures, which made an after image of the level layout so that you could still walk on the after image for a brief amount of time. Which, that as a concept was slightly interesting, but it was polished so terribly, and there was clearly a desire in it to stretch out the length of the game, in that they threw out 2 challenges with every level. One which was like an impossible challenge to beat levels under a certain amount of time, and even doing the first level, like, you could not run to the right of the screen fast enough to get that challenge done. So I don't think it was game tested at all. Honestly, I don't think any of it was game tested at all. It had a story it was trying to tell, but it was telling it by you having to collect these photographs that weren't even photographs. They were actually just text on a photograph background border. The story seemed like it was probably going in a very generic direction, but it was a far distant from something like Super Meat Boy, where, in all fairness, I was not able to defeat and beat Super Meat Boy either, but I got, I think, further, and I could have gotten a lot further and could have enjoyed it a lot more, because there's a real effort in Super Meat Boy's point to have each of the levels very well polished, very well doable for at least the high tier Super Meat Boy style frustration platform gamers out there, where Camera Obscura doesn't have that. Also, Camera Obscura had this problem in which I kept confusing it with a different game that I think is called Photographs. And because of that, I think I was thinking of a completely different game when I bought it. Sadly, it still is probably one of those games that that is reviewed fairly well, and I've run into a couple of games like that where they do seem like they are reviewed higher than they deserve to be.
So sparkly. Yeah. Ow.
And so I've run into some duds. So after rage quitting Camera Obscura, I said, hey, there's a opportunity for a connecting thread here. Let's play the Shantae games, which the Shantae games are, I would say, after now spending about 5 hours playing the first one that's available on Steam, which would be Risky's Revenge, which is the second game in the series. First game was a Game Boy game. The second game, Risky's Revenge Director's Cut, is based off a Game Boy Advance game. And you can definitely feel that it is a Game Boy Advance game. No question there. But it is very playable. It is definitely very playable still to play Risky's Revenge. The graphics are low resolution. The thing that gets me most about Shantae, and it's the thing that certainly convinced me to want to play the Shantae series, but in practical application it is quite awkward, is the fact that you have Shantae, this half genie character that's in a like Persian Indian style belly dancing outfit, bikini with bikini top with like silk leggings showing a lot of hip and a small waist and a decent amount of cleavage, and for the game itself, it feels like it would be a game that you would have a 10 or 12-year-old play. It's a fairly simplistic game. Risky's Revenge is. I think in later iterations they improve the complexity and build out. I imagine there is just a kind of large amount of yeah, I imagine there's probably a large amount of stuff that you just couldn't do in a Game Boy Advance game based on its low resolution and the small amount of space you have. But the entire world of Risky's Revenge is, by the looks of the map, a fairly small Metroidvania-esque world that has one large city that is kind of like the cities in The Adventures of Link. It has a foreground and background jumping mechanic, kind of like the Virtual Boy game Wario Land, which nobody can really get that reference, but there's mini plates where you jump to another level in the background, and then you'll find another plate and potentially jump back to the foreground or jump back to the background even further. The entire game, I looked at the achievements, has like four endings, but one of them's a speedrunning ending, so I'm probably not gonna get that. Let's see. I'm wasting time here not talking. Well, I'm almost certainly gonna win. It's 1-20. Give up.
I lost.
This guy dropped the ball several turns back where he just did not pay attention enough. 3 win streaks. So now the pressure's on because I didn't know I had win streaks going on, but whatever. So yeah, I like Shantae, but it is weird that you have Shantae in the belly dancing element. She has kind of a reason tied around that, in the sense that it's her belly dancing magical moves that let her transform. You get transformation abilities kind of late after the first dungeon, and that is one thing I'm running into a lot. Is I've twice now hit a dungeon area where I thought I've collected everything, and actually no, I missed something, and I've had to go back. And then there's also been an instance where I've thought I've missed something, and I stayed around in an area too long when I needed to move forward. You kind of have to memorize everything in the entire world that you've seen and remember where it was. The map is not helpful there. It doesn't mark a lot of things, and it doesn't breadcrumb you and tell you should go here or you should go there. Not directly. There's a place where you can ask people's hints, but even then you may get directions that are telling you to go the wrong way. I was told to go to one place, and it turned out I hadn't finished something first, so it wouldn't trigger the story to move forward. But yeah, I'm enjoying Shantae Risky's Revenge for what it is, but it is a Game Boy Advance game. You would need it to be a bigger open world, I think, by modern standards, than what it is, than what is being presented. You would need it to have more transformation moves and more movement abilities and more attack abilities. It feels like you're basically playing the game with a Game Boy Advance controller that has a heavy emphasis on just using 2 buttons instead of potentially playing a game that has more complicated controls and would be more designed for a modern controller.
Hey, let's play. Take that. Stay away.
Could have killed one of these guys. Probably should have thought about doing that. But yeah, I've been playing Shantae. I probably am gonna think real hard about playing the next Shantae game and just making a mini series of it. There might be an argument against not doing that, in the sense that very well may end up having me play all the Shantae games in a row and being fairly burned out on them. Also uploading videos, but still dropping the ball completely as far as scheduling videos. YouTube itself feels like it is just completely falling apart at the seams at the moment. There is seemingly a lot of things going wrong with the new studio. And so yeah, every time I upload anything, it tells me that data may be inaccurate. That may just be because I haven't refreshed the page in a while, though. Well, let's start burning through the news. It's not particularly going to be a slow news day, even though it's Friday. It seems to me, I heard that Valve came out and reiterated something that they said has always been the rule, and it, to my knowledge, has always been the rule, in that games listings and discussion boards and general discussion boards hosted on Valve were not allowed to push or mention other purchasing options. Kind of in the same way that Apple doesn't allow people to say, hey, you can go to our website and buy this cheaper or anything like that, which is somewhat understandable, because if you get over that first step, that obviously Apple is trying to create this walled garden where everybody has to pay for everything through their system and get a 30% cut, it totally at that point makes sense that Apple would not allow you to go, actually you can avoid this 30% cut by going to this website. The same is true for Valve. Valve is hosting the platform. They're not going to let you use their platform to advertise something else. Same would be true for Walmart. You can't put packaging on a Walmart product that says, hey, you can get this cheaper if you buy it direct from us. If that were the case, if you could do that, then a lot of people would have done that a long time ago.
Dancing in circles and circles. May the forest be at peace. Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play.
So yeah, once you get past that first part, now if you're still stuck mentally in the fact that you think people should be able to use someone else's like platform to advertise their own platforms, then yeah, that does feel weird. But to move on with the story, Valve came out and reiterated that you can't do that, and apparently an increasing number of people have been doing that. And I would potentially believe that they have kind of reevaluated the way they interpret that rule, because in the past it did seem like they were fairly okay with particularly visual novel publishers linking out to their own website to announce. Darn it. That sucks. They seemed like they were alright with visual novel people linking out to an adult patch, or at least they weren't really going too hard around that idea. This guy can't be killed, apparently.
Hey, let's play. Yeah.
I mean, I can attack the guy, but I don't see a reason to attack the guy. So, in the reiteration, it paints a lot of the stories in the past in a different light. Manga Gamer has definitely been a notable perpetrator of doing that. Manga Gamer has been actively trying to push people on Steam to buy the game on the Manga Gamer site, because you get the uncensored version there. Or apparently or at least from what I hear, some people have been selling uncensored patches on their own sites, which I'm sure at a certain point that kind of does fall on the shoulders of Valve not being so friendly to uncensored versions of the visual novels, but that they have been very inconsistent about whether they would allow a completely uncensored game on their storefront or not. And how many and what kind of completely uncensored games. There is also a secondary story to take from the censorship point as far as adult games and visual novels on Steam, in the fact that one of the Japanese visual novel publishers got rid of their localization team. They just said, we'll just self-publish, which in general sounds like a good idea. Like, on the face of it, it sounds like something you would want. Although in reality, you probably don't want that, because the localization teams, even if they do feel like they're censoring a thing here or there, they are also doing a lot of work to make things understandable and readable. And I've seen some really terribly localized and translated games out there, and you don't want that. But what people weren't really expecting is, because it was a Japanese company with an adult game that was publishing it themselves, they took that to interpret the Japanese laws, and I have no clue whether this is right or not. My feeling is it isn't right, but they took it to mean that because they make a product, because they're a Japanese company, even if they're making a product to sell outside of Japan, they still have to follow Japanese censorship laws, which means everything was pixelated and censored in the game, whereas previously, when the localization team was allowed to make changes, they were uncensoring it, and so nobody's happy with that arrangement. And for that one specific game. So yeah, things are changing slightly. We don't particularly, fans of adult visual novels particularly, are not going to want to play self-published games if they get a reputation that all the self-published games are censored, and pixelated and blurred and mosaicked. And in general, I think the likes of Manga Gamer and the other bad actors, or at least slightly suspect actors that have been pushing people to outside of the Valve store, I think they are a problem that has to be dealt with. At some point, Valve also has to find a happy middle ground there and be willing to have the adult patches on their storefront, or people are just going to have to get used to knowing that they can just go to Google and search an uncensored patch, which is what has been done in the past. Certainly, is that if you had any suspicion whatsoever of there being an uncensored patch for a game, you just had to go search it, and you would almost certainly find it.
Good to see you, my dear fairies.
I need to do a better job about counting.
Welcome our friends to... You can't escape us.
Like, I need to do a better job about not filling my hand with fairies, because it's fairly easy to do in this deck. But yeah, there definitely is a catch-22 there, though, because there definitely are uncensored parts of some visual novels that Valve does not want on their storefront, and at a certain point they are literally just going against their crazy free-for-all libertarian concept that they're trying to implement by saying, no, you can't point towards your own place where you're hosting your own content, because we don't like that content, but also because we don't like that content, we won't let you put the patch in with that content, because at a certain point then it is not, it is going a step from being we're choosing what we want on our storefront to we are just trying to deplatform this game, and that is a delicate balance that they sort of are trying to walk. Anyways, moving on, we end up talking about adult visual novels almost every stream, and because it's the I guess Battlefront domain. It's where all the fights seem to happen. Nobody's gonna fight to have their low effort asset flip game stay on Steam, not with any real authority that anybody's gonna care about. But the rabid fan base of visual novel games does cause a lot of conflict there. Moving on, we have a game here called Big Farm Story, which is mixed, so looks like it's a Stardew Valley game that's early access for $19.99, bunch of languages. I wouldn't want to play it anyways, even if it was well reviewed, so that's an easy one to ignore. Next we have a game called Flying Slime, which looks like kind of an Ori and the Will of Wisp looking game. The real question though is this more like a cut the rope type game that just looks well visually polished, or is this something different? It looks like a swinging game, but it also looks like a cheap Chinese game at $2.45. I'll put it on the fall list, but my suspicion is this looks really good, but actually is really short or controls fairly badly. And they did a lot of things there.
Hey, let's play.
1, 2, 3, and in the turn. So every time one of these gets on the field, it's doing damage to me. I need to figure out how that worked. Well, so much for my win streak. Gamatsu has an article here. Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair Anniversary Edition is now available for iOS and Android. So these games have been out for a while on other platforms, but it does kind of also go to point out that these, I would say, RPG games, be my guess is what they are. Although actually it feels more like a visual novel game than anything. They seem like they are simplistic enough that you don't have to do you don't have to do too much physical to play them. Yeah, it's not an RPG game. It feels more like it's a mystery story based game. I think in my mind I confuse Disgaea and Danganronpa very often, and it leaves me with this mix in my head between, I really don't know the difference between Disgaea, Danganronpa, and Persona, to throw in a third game. Moving on, Gamatsu Studio Art Dink, never heard of them, announces G-Choice Global Game Brand, first title due out in December, which is basically an announcement for an announcement, I guess. It's the company behind a game called A-Train and Neo Atlas, which also I don't recognize. Every time I have to use a Gamma Sutra article, you know what I should do is I should just never suspend from Gamma Sutra. I'm gonna whitelist it because Gamma Sutra articles always take forever to load, and there's a good 3 seconds between each time I have to click on a Gamma Sutra article, and there's this awkward silence. Anyways, they have a job listing for Robot Entertainment for a senior video FX. You can work remote or in Plano, Texas. This is the Orcs Must Die franchise developer.
They're picking on me.
Let's see. Go ahead and kill that.
Stand a chance.
And what do we want here?
Take that. Stay away.
Next, we have a game with just Japanese letters around it. It looks like it is a fairly simplistic hack and slash platformer. This might be a spin-off of like a Toho game or something like that. Like, it does seem like it's trying to be fairly kid-friendly in its animation style. And I would put this like as a 70s animation style in general, which feels like quite a throwback. But English is not supported. It's $11.99 and it's Japanese only. So if this was a really popular game, oh, there is an English version. It's just being sold at a completely different place called Fortune Summoners. Interesting. And it's already on my wish list, interestingly enough. So it is a really popular game, and this was put out in January of 2012. So they are just re-releasing the game, apparently, in the Japanese version. That's a weird way to do things.
Stay away. Hey, let's play.
Didn't play fast enough. Well, that certainly is an interesting twist. It's also very weird that this Japanese version of the game is apparently not in widescreen stretched out, whereas the original game, the English version, is widescreen stretched out. I'm playing the Shantae Risky's Revenge game with the graphics stretched out, and yeah, you can definitely tell that it was not originally intended to look that way, but it's not really a big issue. Start of your 10th turn, evolve it. Do we want this guy gone? I think we want this guy gone.
Just don't.
Let's just get rid of him.
Hey, let's play. Let's play.
Yeah. Normally, when emulating a game, it might make a lot of sense to not stretch out the pixels, but it kind of just depends on the level of graphics and how important that is. For Shantae, I think having the black bars 100% of the time on the screen is worse than having the pixels stretched 100% of the time and having a full screen widescreen experience. Moving on, Gamersutra has an article here. Amazon Games signs on to publish a Smilegate RPG game in the West, which is Smilegate, I think, is a Chinese MMO developer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Okay. We have this, this, this.
Beg for mercy.
I'm so sparkly.
This, and then that, and that. Oh man, Ever got me beat here.
Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play. Yeah.
This guy gets an extra damage, extra health every time it clashes, so a 1-1 won't be able to defeat it. Open Critic has an article here. 505 Games explains why only Control's Ultimate Edition will provide a next-gen upgrade. I think we already talked about the story, but it's basically some grade A BS where early adopters, people who pre-ordered Ultra, and pre-ordered Control, and potentially bought the DLC expansion that's not out yet. Those people are going to be punished for doing the thing that every single game company has always told you they want you to do, which is buying the game early and buying it on day one in that initial launch window. Instead, they're a less than a year old game of Control, which now that there's some controversy, I'm seeing of the small amount of mainstream game media that even want to talk about it, I'm seeing a lot of them saying the truth, that the game isn't actually that interesting or that good. So we're seeing some backlash there instead of the massive amount of hype that was around it during its launch window. If this was not 505 Games, if this was a much more hated game, if this was the Epic, if this was Epic saying you had to buy Fortnite Ultimate Edition to get a free upgrade to the next generation of consoles for Fortnite on the next generation of consoles, which I actually haven't heard any actual talk, I don't think, of Fortnite even being on the next generation of consoles. One assumes it would be there, but I haven't seen anything. It would be funny if it turned out that Microsoft and Sony got together and said, hey, we're actually just gonna not let Epic have Fortnite on our platforms, just out of how terrible Tim Sweeney has been to people in the past. It kind of wouldn't be a bad idea if they preemptively just said, no, we're gonna not have Fortnite on our consoles. And at a certain point, it's a weird concern, but a free-to-play game like Fortnite may take up so much of the next generation of players' time, and the same may have been said about Minecraft, where people are not buying other games and not playing other games. So a game like Fortnite could very well, this looks new, Eternal Whale, they could very well be eating into the profits of other game developers with their free-to-play element. Anyways, though, to get back to the Control Ultimate Edition, yeah, great ABS. You have to basically rebuy the whole game a second time, which nobody should have to do, to get a free upgrade, which you kind of suspect that if you have Control on the Xbox One or the PS4, you have to suspect at some point they're going to give in on that. Whether it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now, at some point there's going to be an updated visual version. And honestly, if there isn't, then it kind of doesn't matter anyways. Okay. This. And this. And I'm gonna lose here. I mean, I can keep attacking, certainly. Unless he's got something that's going to do 12 damage to himself. I've lost here. Next we have a game on Steam called Endless Escape, where it seems like you're running down a puzzle to try and escape a tomb. It might be a game here, or this might be just kind of like a asset flip infinite runner game. It's $3.99. I'll put it on the follow list. English only. Yeah. I guess the real question is just how fun would this really be, playing kind of like a Dark Souls, you're gonna die over and over again type escape place while being chased by zombies and avoiding traps, or let's see.
He's blocked me. Hey, let's play.
I don't know why he didn't attack then. Yeah, it really will just come. Endless Escape would just come down to how fun the actual gameplay is and how repetitive it gets and how quickly it becomes repetitive. See, I don't know why he's not just winning. By all looks, it seems like you could just attack. Right, this.
Leave this to me, fairy friends.
And then this.
Hey, let's play.
This.
Hey, let's play.
This.
Hey, let's play.
This.
Hey, let's play.
I'll take care of them.
Attack that. Gamma Sutra has an article. PlayStation 5 devs explain how DualSense haptics will actually work.
I must retreat.
I suppose that might be interesting if you're really obsessed with how the haptics actually work. Although, in all fairness, if you get a PlayStation 5, you'll fairly quickly figure out how they work when you have the controller in your hand. I don't think I've gotten but one, maybe two victories so far. So I could try and jump to a different character and play a different deck, but we are in that dangerous position where I may very well just be locking myself into playing Forestcraft because I think Forestcraft is my best deck. Or I could be absolutely right about that and Forestcraft is my best deck, and thus that is the right one to go to. Oops, I was not looking at my chat. Let me come over here and see if anybody's saying anything in the chat. Nope. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Robowork, which looks like you play as a robot wandering around doing basically nothing by the looks of it. It looks a little asset flippy. Robotic survival game, collect items, dig mines, and craft. Yeah. Early access, $16.99. That's way overpriced. English only. Yeah. This is like an asset flip game. I also don't know if there is any logic there as far as a Minecraft clone where you are a robot in particular. That seems like robots would probably need less resources than a human. Twitch support had trouble on August 20th where Twitch was just failing to load in some cases. And they eventually addressed it on the same day. It is definitely getting really ridiculous as far as the level of polish that Twitch seems to have. The thing I would really like to see, as a YouTuber who would love to leave YouTube like most YouTubers, is I would like to see Twitch come out with new things that actually are good ideas and improve in any way whatsoever, instead of Twitch basically just modeling itself as OnlyFans, except for we won't allow full nudity, because that's pretty much all they've got going for them, is that they're just stealing ideas from sites like OnlyFans. So they've really done absolutely nothing to make Twitch feel like an attractive option to leave YouTube for, whereas Twitch should have been an amazingly attractive option instead of just YouTube. Honestly, I was thinking about it. If somebody could make a new YouTube competitor that literally just said, we're not going to do the content ID system, that would be perfectly fine with me. Anybody that files a DMCA has your video taken down directly. You can dispute it. If you win the dispute, the video goes back up, but it does not stay up for even a second if a DMCA claim is filed. And that way you just get rid of the content ID system, which is not a good system. Like, it's totally made the copyright issue way worse. And even that small change would be fine. And then if I was in charge after that point, I'd also say we're making a YouTube competitor for actual YouTube content type creators. We're not going to ever court or try and get celebrities. We're not going to give special preference to celebrities. We're not going to give special preference to news sites that are going to try and slander us regardless. At a certain point, what I'm describing is probably something close to like a 4chan for video. Let's see. How can we do this? What's the best way to do this? I think it's that. And then do that. And do that. And then we'll go ahead and evolve here. And do that. I forgot this guy only does 1 damage at a time. Next we have a game on Steam called Unit 404. This looks like it is a puzzle platformer, I guess is what you'd call it. There's enough visual polish here though to make it actually feel like there's a game potentially here. It almost kind of feels like a Lemmings take on a puzzle block swapping puzzle game. Let's see, it's $7.99, which is fairly expensive, and a bunch of languages. I'm gonna put this on the follow list and see if anybody says anything about it, but that price is fairly high, so I could definitely see a lack of interest in people purchasing and playing a game like that. See, next we have a game called Trash Can Dungeon Battle Against the Zoo, which looks like it's a very weird named and weird made RPG maker type game. with some pretty bad graphics.
Do you know the
English
eternal
is not supported at all, even though it's an English title. It's free in Japanese, and I guess the price is right at that point, if you can speak Japanese. I think at this point I do want to... I think we need to turn that music down. Let's see. Yeah, it's getting to the point where the music is a little too intense, so it's getting harder to just think either that or something's going wrong with me, which who knows. See, that's the problem, is that I more than likely just had the flu a week ago, and
The void will be there
you
for
just
me.
never know if you had like a light COVID situation. But yeah, even now I'm feeling a little tired, and I don't know if that's because it's hot or if it's because I've just been streaming. But I haven't even been streaming that long. I've been streaming for an hour. Let me see if I can remotely get my air conditioner to chill the place off a little bit more.
The touch of death. I've seen them.
We may have to call this short. No, yeah, it's like 80 degrees in my room. Suppose there is a question about, yeah, there's a question here of just whether or not I'm kind of fairly constantly having heat stroke.
Flock to me.
I just looked at my chat and I see someone says, "Hello, can I fight with you? I would like unlimited if possible." Alright, let's try that after this game if you're still watching. Sorry it took me a while to respond. How do you want to do that? Do you want to make it a private match and put a code number there? Or I guess if you don't respond on the chat, I'll give it a couple of minutes and I'll bring up a private match myself and just let people challenge me.
Dear fairy.
Absurd!
Like, it probably isn't the best point to try and friend people at the moment. Particularly in this game, it's weird because you want to do the private matches, you don't want to do friend matches. By the way, I did finally manage to join a guild, and I think I already showed this, but it doesn't really seem like there's any real big deal about joining a guild. Alright, so solo, not practice, multiplayer, private, create a private match. Nope. Create a private match, regular, single match, rotation, unlimited is what they wanted. Great match. There we go. So type in this match ID. This is a temporary thing, so this should be fairly safe. Of 97834. You would go to multiplayer, private, join private, type in this ID, and that will happen there, and we'll play a real game. And since we're playing a real game, let's do something a little bit more interesting and try Dragoncraft. So that's there. And meanwhile, while I'm waiting for anybody to join, we'll give it about 4 minutes. We'll go through the news. We have a game here on Steam called Souls Lord. It looks like a low-effort RPG game, RPG Maker game. English again not supported, free, Japanese only. What you see the difference here, particularly between a free or low-effort Japanese game and a Chinese low-effort game, is the Chinese low-effort games almost never are free, where the Japanese developers do kind of seem like they're willing to make a low-effort game as a passion project and then release it like it was a passion project. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Peaky Blinders Masterminds, which I assume this is a tie-in to the TV series Peaky Blinders, which I haven't really watched. So it'd be kind of weird for me to play this game, but I could probably watch a couple episodes of it. It looks very much like it's a XCOM. Well, no, not actually an XCOM game as much as a stealth game. So I'll put it on the follow list and think about it. $19.99, however, is a very high price for a TV crossover advertisement product. Single player only, bunch of languages, rated M for mature. So there's definitely a question there. Next, we have a game called Happy Marriage Project, starting from 9 years old, which looks like it is an RPG Maker game, Chinese game, I suspect, where the idea is you start at 9 and then you pick your potential wife, and then you try to date her in specific scenes as you grow up and they get older, which then always feels a little weird, like in a couple different ways. I'm not sure how many people in the West would agree that the girl you dated when you were 9, which if you were even dating a girl when you were 9, should be the person that you end up marrying. It really shows like no emotional growth whatsoever for potentially a decade or more. It's a romantic notion, and like many romantic notions, it actually is a fairly dumb idea. Like, the whole point of dating is to kind of make mistakes, grow emotionally yourself, and so that's just not something that really should happen. And in the rare cases it does happen, it gets romanticized. But honestly, it's actually a fairly pathetic story to say we married my childhood sweetheart I was dating at 9. It means you either had no better prospects, or you were so obsessive and so crazy that you just pursued the same person over and over again. Regardless, this game is free, so the price is right, but then again, it is also Japanese only. And I feel like this might just be all published by the same makers of the RPG Maker series. Yeah, this is seemingly the same company is putting out several of these games, or trying to have an event where a bunch of RPG Maker style games get put out at the same time as kind of like advertisements for free products. I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes and then I'm giving up. So I guess maybe the person in the chat didn't get responded to fast enough, or got busy doing something else. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Ogretale, which the Digisia games, or I don't know how you pronounce that actually. Digika? It's probably Digika games are on sale. This is tagged as an action adventure game, although frankly it looks more like a beat 'em up game. Unfortunately, it's mixed, when actually it looks kind of interesting, with a beat 'em up game with some chibi characters that have their own little unique spin in the way things are drawn. Let's see, it's $15.99, which is too expensive. It's Japanese full audio. I'm gonna put this on the follow list, but almost certainly next time I do a follow list cleanup, it's gonna get removed. Next we have Battletoads on Steam, which I am shocked to see people say is mostly positive. And apparently it's a rare game, which means it's a Microsoft game as the publisher, but it's a different studio. The thing that I have heard about Battletoads is it is not trying to emulate the original Battletoads game, which the original Battletoads was kind of bad. Instead, it kind of jumps around and tries several different gameplay styles, making it feel just very whiplash. It's not really a beat 'em up game from what I'm hearing, that there's a few beat 'em up sections, but then there are major sections where you do different things, almost as if this developer was just using Microsoft's money to teach themselves how to make different styles of games, which is exactly what I think happened. The only other game this developer has on Steam is a game called Overruled, which looks like it is a Smash Brothers clone, and it was published by Team 17. So I heavily suspect what happened here is Microsoft didn't care. They just wanted to get that cheap pop of saying they were making a new Battletoads game, and probably to keep the copyright also. So there I think was also complaints, probably unfairly, around the new animation style for Battletoads. But I think Battletoads could have been rebooted into a better series than this. Instead of just trying different styles of gameplay, there should have been a consistent attempt to actually make a beat 'em up game and actually make it good, and I think they didn't really do that. 3-player couch co-op is also a weird choice there. They should have thrown in a 4th character. Like, personally, if I was in the writer's room, I'd say, hey, let's throw in a baby Battletoad that would be new for this series, or let's throw in a different kind of character. Maybe you have a straight man to 3 comedic characters. If the Battletoads are supposed to be like the Three Stooges or something like that, then you have a more intelligent character that would bounce off that. But you definitely would want to get to 4-player combat, and that would expand the idea. So yeah, I'm gonna leave Battletoads on the follow list. It's $19.99. It has English full audio and a bunch of other language, under a bunch of other language supports, but no full audio on any of the other languages. And this may also be a case where the mainstream media, the 2 places I've heard talked about Battletoads, hates it for some secret reason, or that they're not saying, or they just hate it because they don't relate to average gamers in any way, and average gamers maybe like it. Alright, well, here you are. I've given it a fair shake here with the private match, and not only did I not get the person who wanted to play me, but I didn't get any random person either, which random people wouldn't actually be able to do it, because you have to type in a number. You can't just say, let me join a random private match. But yeah, I gave it a chance there, and that's as much as I'm willing to do as far as ruining my stream and the video, waiting for somebody to play that obviously is left. And you definitely get that too. You get, as a content creator, you definitely get people that put a comment on and then you miss their comment or you don't immediately respond to their comment and then they immediately get mad as if they were paying me a premium of some sort to pay attention to them and only them. And I guess at a certain point that is what the super chat concept is people paying premium to get their comments highlighted. But even in the super chats, I feel like a fair number of streamers will ignore super chat if they want to. Of course, if you do that, you'll probably stop getting super chats, and you have to be fairly big for super chats to work at all. Moving on, we have a game called Record of Battle 3D Maiden Wars, which looks like a mobile phone game. Yeah, it does not look visually polished enough. It's not widescreen. English is not supported though. Japanese again. And that is Kodakawa again putting that out. So it does kind of feel like Kodakawa is just putting out a whole bunch of games and flooding Steam, which even for the maker of RPG Maker, well, I honestly I would say particularly for the maker of RPG Maker, there should be a limit on the number of games they can put out per week, per month, per year. Because I would personally think that most people would be fine with the idea of completely banning all RPG Maker games in the first place. Because they tend to be so bad and so prevalent that there needs to be a tighter control valve on those type of games. Next we have Louis and Secret Basement Rooms, which again is Kodakawa and again is an RPG Maker game for free in Japanese. And this must have been some kind of Japanese event. Next we have a game called Chef, a restaurant tycoon game, where once again I feel like these are games where you're doing somebody's job and they tend not to be particularly fun. You can see in the last 30 days it's mixed, whereas mostly positive overall. $15.99 English full audio. Is there anything in the screenshots that makes this look like something I'd want to play though? No, not really. Let's see. This. And then this. And then this. And then this. And then go ahead and evolve this. There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called Root, which is rated very positively. Looks like it's an adventure game. I'm only a little concerned about it maybe not being a single player game. It's early access, it's $14.99. Yes, it does have single player, but it does require a third party account, which is suspect. I think there's enough visual polish here in a game like this to make it look like this is something I want to put on the fall list. But there are some major caveats on the idea that this might be fairly repetitive or short and kind of more like a board game. Also, may find that having a third-party account is unacceptable for several reasons.
Which fighter can go the distance?
Let's see.
Beg for mercy.
Gamatsu has an article here. Hitman 3 reveals England location Dartmoor. The PC version is a timed exclusive for the Epic Game Stores. We still have a lot of that going on. Dartmoor, I guess, is this house in London. Yep. A lot of timed exclusives still seeming to happen. Whereas it felt like it could have been the end of timed exclusives at this level. That there was enough backlash around that. I guess we may be in a point where there's just so much other backlash happening based around accusations happening at Ubisoft and Rocksteady and just so many other things happening that aren't even video game related, that perhaps the Epic Game Store and Epic in general has figured that people have gotten complacent and forgotten about their hate for timed exclusives enough that they still feel like they can get away with it and that it is beneficial to get away with it. Which also maybe the numbers straight up just showed that it was beneficial to still have timed exclusives. That very well may be the case. That for as much as people complained, I wouldn't be surprised if a large percentage of people still ended up buying the games on the Steam store. Next we have a game on Steam here called Shadow of Valhalla, which suffers from some dark screenshot syndrome, but it looks like there might actually be a game here. It's a VR game though, for $17.99, English only. You're fighting orcs and zombies and skeletons. Well, maybe no zombies, maybe just skeletons. It actually looks good, so I'm going to put it on the follow list, but I also need to rethink about why I'm putting VR games on the follow list. That is something that has not even occurred to me until this very second. Like, I'm thinking about building a whole new computer, and I have given exactly zero thoughts to, hey, could I afford to buy a VR headset for $600? The answer to that is almost certainly no. Could I play VR games? Almost certainly no. I could not. I'm probably could not stand that long. I couldn't record while standing. I'd have to get a whole nother like lavalier type mic or something along that line. I'd have to have a whole new setup, and physically I don't know if I can stand that long. I can barely manage to sit for 3 hours without being exhausted. Just horribly unhealthy these days.
I'm not one for pranks.
So
Oh,
yeah, I haven't even begun to think down that path, and now that I am thinking down that path, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy a VR headset. Absolutely not. I'd be more likely to buy a driving rig with or a HOTAS for flying, for which I'm seeing some people talking about buying those for the Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I feel like every time there's a new Microsoft Flight Simulator game or flying game in general, people get super hyped about it for a week or two, and then they kind of abandon it at that point. I believe that's our second win, and they wanted us to have 5 wins. Hopefully that's not 5 daily wins, because I really don't have an extra week to just set aside for rewards. Next we have a game on Steam called Grief Helm, which looks like it's a hack and slash game. It's mixed at the moment, $17.99, English only. Is it mixed reviewed enough that I can not put it on the fall list? Because my first instance would be to look no further and not do anything. But apparently you need friends, according to one viewer, and that might be the case. The fighting style is very similar to Mount and Blade. However, the game is not ready for release in its current state, and for the price tag is a little higher than it should be. Let's see. The game is incredibly clunky and doesn't hold a candle to Nidhogg. There we go. So I got 3 victories.
You were utterly pathetic.
And in those 3 victories, I also got a new leader or sleeve. Unfortunately, I think this still puts Griefhelm on the fall list, though. I want to give it a decent chance to maybe fix its problems. I'm probably too generous, frankly. Because here's a new leader I don't recognize.
That easy.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Orlando Theme Park VR Roller Coaster and Rides. Whether this is supposed to be Disney World, or whether this is supposed to be Universal Studios, or whether they're just making a theme park and calling it the Orlando theme park because there's a couple theme parks in Orlando. I don't know. By the looks of it, if this is supposed to be Disney World, it's a fairly pathetic parody of Disney World. If it's supposed to be Universal Studios, I'm not familiar enough with Universal Studios to know. I kind of think this is supposed to be Disney World, though. In VR, it's free, but then there's DLC for every single ride. In-app purchases. English full audio. So, deceptive on top of that, where you can get the game for free and not actually ride any ride until you pay up. And
be at peace.
imagine just how incredibly disruptive it must be in VR to have a screen pop up and tell you you have to buy this DLC. Like, for the idea of VR being immersive, how frustrating that must be to have something completely break reality in front of you for a microtransaction. Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian characters. Stars Era, The Final Defense. It looks like a space shooter game. And I'm not going to just reject it because it's probably a Chinese game. It's 99 cents, English and Chinese. I'm going to give it a follow because I'm a little ignorant on space shooter games, so this might actually be a really good one. I'm not sure that means I really want to play any space shooter games. But B, I just don't see anything wrong with this, so I'm going to... So they've, at the very least, learned, finally, as far as Chinese games, they finally learned how to make their games look interesting and not just cheaply made. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Bacon Switch, which E for everyone, Comic Mischief. Is a local and online couch co-op game, player versus player. And the screenshots want to load. It's online PvP only, which kind of eliminates it for me. But yeah, it does seem like it's probably just a little bit of a Smash Brothers Mario Party style game without the board game aspects. It's just like the mini games of Mario Party. Yep. I'm not seeing anything there of interest. That. Play that.
Let's play.
Follow that.
Beg for mercy.
I'm so sparky.
Do that. And that. And that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Clowns, which is either a Joust clone, if you want to call it a Joust clone, or it's a Mario Brothers clone, not to be confused with Super Mario Brothers. I mean the arcade game Mario Brothers. And you're shooting clowns, which I can see a lot of people liking the idea of shooting clowns. Unfortunately, as a Mario Brothers clone, you run into the problem of the fact that the Mario Brothers game, the arcade Mario Brothers game, wasn't really good. So
Why are you here?
you then have that as an issue.
Hey, let's play.
They're selling it for $2.39 English only. It does seem like there is a bit of a boss fight at the end, but no, I feel like if I was gonna try and play a game like this, it would just be because I was trying to get like views on YouTube and not actually have an entertaining experience. Next, we have a game on Steam called Mystic Midway Rest in Pieces, which is a 1994 game, which it definitely looks like a 1994 game,
Absurd.
but it doesn't look particularly interesting. At $4.24, it's probably too expensive anyways. I lost there. It's English only. Yeah, there just does not look like there's enough of a game here. It looks like you're just trying to click and shoot on things as they scroll by. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Citadel: The Awakened Spirit, which catches my attention with a succubus demon girl, and it looks like a NES era platformer that is at a very high resolution, so it's zoomed out probably too much, but perhaps that means there will be giant bosses. It does feel like it's very heavily inspired by Castlevania. Feels like there might be a game here though. $8.99 English only. We'll put it on the follow list. We'll see if people want to play it. There is definitely a question that can be asked as far as just how many Castlevania spin-off fans are there. There are definitely fans that want to play Castlevania games, and Bloodstained, the spiritual successor to Castlevania from the same creator, sold well. But if you start having people who have no connection and no affiliation to Castlevania make Castlevania spin-off games, I don't know if that has selling power.
Dancing in circles and circles.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Mr. Joys, which looks like it's a platformer / shooter. It looks like it's a fairly high frustration platformer with graphics that aren't quite polished enough. It's $2.99 English full audio. It's being compared to Shovel Knight and Super Meat Boy, 2 games that I could not beat. Or had no interest in trying to beat after a few hours. I wouldn't say that the arthritis in my hands is getting worse, but it's definitely not getting better. Actually, I think it probably is getting slightly worse. I recall a couple days ago it was getting pretty stiff.
My steed sails above the sand.
So when I run into these high frustration platforming games, it's just like, this is gonna ruin my hand. If I actually tried to play it the whole way through. Let's go and do this.
The final oasis awaits.
And do this.
Hey, let's play.
And then attack here. And attack here. Next we have a game on Steam called Black Datura and Red Goat. A bunch of Asian characters here. This seems like this is an RPG Maker, probably Chinese game by the looks of it.
Mother, Father. I am the beast. The beast.
Let's see.
Is I.
English is not supported. $7.19. I think there might be something about this game, if I vaguely recall. It's Chinese. But I might be thinking of a different game too. I feel like I've seen this character and there was something more to it. Like the person behind it, the person that worked on it or something. But I guess it doesn't matter. If it doesn't support English, it doesn't support English. If they released an English version of the game later, then hopefully we'd be able to find that and move forward from that perspective.
See you, my dear fairies. Let's welcome our friends to the You can't escape us! No! Don't leave me! Don't leave me!
That. And that. Still have tons of tabs. We have the game Inmost. I think we've talked about this a couple times already. It is rated very positively. It's $14.99. English full audio with a bunch of other languages. I think I need to probably make the decision right here and right now whether I want this on the wish list instead of a follow list, and I think I'm just going to put it on the wish list. Maybe I'm being too generous. There could be some problems here. It's being labeled as a puzzle platformer. That is more in line with what I'd like to play and cover. I don't particularly want to play a action platformer.
Hey, let's play! Let's play!
See. Next we have a game on Steam called The Dreamcatcher, which looks very visually polished. See, the name sends me to think that it's a Chinese game, but if this is a 3D visuals asset flip game from a Chinese company, that in itself should be applauded, because almost every low effort Chinese game has been not that. It's been a flat 2D visual novel ripoff or an RPG Maker ripoff. The idea of having a Dreamcatcher be a magical element in a story is actually an interesting idea too. That's not been done a lot. This is $14.44, English and Chinese full audio. This deserves to be on the follow list. Like, this actually looks like it is at least as good as the better walk around horror games. Interesting. And that is a sign of hope. Even though it may not seem like it at first glance, that is definitely a sign of hope of just improved quality games. What kind of Chinese games?
So sparkly. Yeah.
That, and then that just take the victory.
Be that way.
You were utterly pathetic.
And as long as we're winning somewhat with the Forestcraft deck, there's really no reason not to just always play with the Forestcraft deck. Apologies if that makes this really boring, but sadly that kind of was the case with Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena 2, is that you find one deck that wins a lot and then you focus in on that, and jumping around to different decks becomes difficult to do.
A dazzling victory awaits.
Next game we have is just in Asian characters, and looks like it might be a RPG maker game, maybe a Chinese game. I kind of like the characters being depicted. This little devil lady here and Chinese girl. English not supported. It's free to play with 99 cents DLC. Again, even as an RPG maker game though, that looks like it was a mobile phone game, this does seem like it has more polish than a lot of Chinese games. It's nice to have something nice to say about Chinese games too, because so often you have to just write them all off as garbage because they are, or you have to yell at the Chinese government for committing some new atrocity on top of the many atrocities that they're still committing, which, let's not forget, they're still committing them with nobody really stopping them. I thought this was interesting. Major Nelson tweeted this out. There's a Digerati Couch Co-op Volume 2 game bundle here, which seems to be a bundle of like 4 games that I have never seen before. 4 very different looking games from a company I have never heard of either. Digerati, I guess maybe is how you are supposed to pronounce that. I am increasingly realizing that there are a growing number of third-party, like, kind of low-effort independent developers out there that have either been completely overlooked as far as listing their games on Steam, or have simply chosen to not list their games on Steam and instead list their games on the Microsoft storefronts. That was a weird sound effect that played. Next we have PGA Tour 2K21, which I don't know why I would want to play the professional like golfing game. If I was gonna play a golf game, I'd want like a silly golf game. I'd want Mario Golf or something like that. I don't think anybody cares about any of the famous golfers other than Tiger Woods. I don't think anybody really cares about famous golf locations in virtual reality. So I really wonder if how big of an audience, if there is any audience for a game like this. But I guess at the core of it, I know I'm not part of that audience, and that should just be good enough for me to tell me not to bother.
I walk my own path. Just don't.
Hit that. And then that. And then that. And then
Let's play.
keep as many fairies on the ground as possible. See. Gamatsu has an article, Witch Spring 3 Refine, the story of the Marinette Witch Erdry. I guess that's how that would be pronounced. Rudy, perhaps. It's coming to Switch on December 3rd, which just definitely looks like a Japanese game of some sort. They're calling it a witch raising RPG, which is an interesting concept. So instead of like a daughter raising game, it's a witch raising game, which probably means the exact same thing.
Hey, let's play.
Beg for mercy.
I'm still not sure that there is any good example of a daughter raising or a child raising game out there. I feel like what happened is the Princess Maker series tried that, and then it didn't fully get polished enough and became its own niche product that could never get over itself or improve upon itself enough to actually become a really good concept for a game. Let's see.
Hey, let's play.
Do this. And then do this. I should have played this first.
Hey, let's play.
That would have been smarter. Next, we have a game on Steam called Take That, which is a fairly bad name for a game. And it does look like it is just a shooting people in a low polygon Western environment game. $2.79 makes it a little too cheap. Bunch of language. This is also early access according to the description, even though it's not labeled as early access. It's also single player only, which is weird. I'm gonna put this on the follow list, but honestly it feels lacking as far as the level of quality you would expect. Okay. Hit this one with ward. And then I died. So I couldn't have won there. And I don't know exactly what effect happened there that made me die, but whatever. Let's try Swordcraft. Let's spice it up a little bit. I'm never gonna get anywhere if I don't give these the occasional try anyways. Next we have a game on Steam here called Bird Path. We've seen a few of these where you fly around as a bird, and it's questionable how much of a game there is when doing this. This one seems like it is pretty much just an infinite runner,
You must
where
die.
it's the second you miss a
Don't
ring,
underestimate me.
you lose, and it either goes on forever or you just get the maximum and you're done. It's 79 cents. It's bundled with a bunch of other low cost games. It's English only with 9 achievements. This definitely strikes me as too simplistic a game. Also no VR. Whereas a game like that, there might be a small argument to having a VR experience. Next, we have a game on Steam called Zeroed, which seems to be a fast-paced flying around game where I don't know what you're actually flying, though it seems like you're first person flying a jet trying to shoot down another jet. I heard a story about in World War II there was a Russian division of women flyers that were given like really slow planes. They were called the Night Witches by the Germans. And the planes were like so slow and so quiet because they weren't designed for warfare that they could literally just go to a near stall speed in their planes, and the jet fighters that were pursuing them would not be able to slow down that much, otherwise they would just stall and fall out of the air. So they could basically just slow down and get behind a jet, and then getting behind a jet is a great opportunity to shoot down the jet. So they were very effective, even though they were not appreciated really by the Russians. Let's see.
Elegant and perfectly stunning.
Too slow. Too slow.
As for the game Zeroed, yeah, it's $7.35 with 8% off, which is a weird discount. It's early access. I just don't see a full game in it. And we're up close to the end, but I don't see the end yet.
Fall on their wings, wander no longer.
Let's see.
Stunningly.
Too slow. Too slow.
Gamma Sutra has a job listing here for Wizards of the Coast. They're looking for a lead client engineer in Renton, Washington. I could put in some opinionated statements here about Wizards of the Coast, but I'll just throw out that if they are looking for a lead client engineer, they're either scaling up or they've lost their current, or they lost their former lead client engineer. So either they're trying to do something more, or they've just trying to replace somebody.
You are done for.
The streets have eyes behind you.
Gamma Sutra had this. Rocksteady's response to claims of inaction outlines past and future anti-harassment plans. Also, Apple allegedly, according to Gamma Sutra, it says allegedly Apple has offered to reverse its action against Epic, including the impending ban jeopardizing the Unreal Engine iOS and macOS support, if the company agrees to remove Fortnite's rule-breaking payment methods, which I would argue that is not the right response, and that may hurt them. Like, the truth is, in court cases and lawsuits, a lot of your actions won't hurt you as much as you would think, but some actions definitely can hurt you, and there definitely can be amended complaints now that that Apple is effectively extorting them, where if they had stayed silent and said, no, we are just done doing business with you completely, that would have been a better stance for them to have.
Legacy is written in blood.
Because it does feel like now they're basically acting as extortionists instead of just saying, no, we just are trying to get out of the business of dealing business with Epic. And see, at the core of this, that really is the right response, is to say we just don't want to do business with Epic ever again. They have proven themselves untrustworthy. But here we have the full Gamma Sutra article. Epic on Epic's retaliation claim, quote, the emergency is entirely of Epic's own making. Also, Epic is doing like an in-game tournament to strawman and act like the fight with Apple. Let's see. I can play this. I can play this. I can evolve this.
Victory in sight.
And
Just as planned.
get rid of that. Apple support actually had some trouble, and very rarely do we see any Apple support things. I don't follow Apple support, so I could probably, Xbox support is what I'm talking about. But Xbox support, apparently you were unable to purchase things on Windows and Xbox Store, and Major Nelson's retweeted that. There probably have been issues here. And in all fairness, I probably should just stop watching Twitch support so much. Because I probably am getting a jaded perspective since I see Twitch support announcing every single issue. Whereas if I was following Xbox support here, I would also be seeing pretty much every single issue. Although, frankly, they really don't seem like they're posting that many issues. We'll just go through everything until we're done. Let's see. Now, Rocksteady Games also had a thing to respond to, so they put out this picture, which, let's see. If I can zoom in. Nope, you can't zoom in enough. They've got this set in such a way that you can't actually read the picture. You'd have to download it to see it. So, yeah. Either use Twit longer or don't put a picture up. But they intentionally did this. Like, you know they intentionally did this. Either that or they're just idiots. So take your pick. So, of what I can see of Rocksteady's statements, there's a paragraph here that says, we continue to learn and we're working diligently to increase the ways we support everyone. Blah, 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 blah. Right now we're passionate as ever about creating an inclusive culture and we are listening carefully. We're determined to stand up for our staff and stand firm against any unacceptable behavior. Now, I think the story with Rocksteady was that there was one person that put out a statement. This is one of the new characters skins, so somebody got the leader skin real quick, which probably means I'm going to lose very quickly. I think one person said that them and 8 other people were brought up issues, and I think they were all female. They brought up issues, and then they were given a single like mandatory training. Everybody was, and then that was that, which in all fairness, if you go to HR with complaints and HR doesn't want to deal with it, which they don't ever, and they don't have any real evidence, then they are just going to do a training. At least that's the only public action you're going to see. If they're secretly warning off and writing up the managers for something, that's not going to get back to you. But it definitely did feel like something happened there, and it felt like very much that is the, no matter what was done, they weren't going to be happy about it. Because sadly, you just cannot get another person fired if management doesn't want them fired. And like, it would be nice if you could get someone else fired that deserved to be fired, but honestly, it almost never happens. Unless you're the person in charge making the hiring and firing decisions. And it probably protects you as much as anything, because if you want somebody fired, that somebody probably wants you fired, and there's probably somebody else that wants you fired. Odds are there are probably 2 people that want you fired for every 1 person you want fired. Or canceled. In this case, now it really is getting down to the point where it is just, well, I want this person straight up canceled. But the problem with this, the first initial statement, if this is a story I'm recalling, I may be misremembering this or confusing this with a different story. The problem was, after that initial person said them and 8 people made these complaints, 7 of those 8 people, I think, have come back and said, no, this story was completely misconstrued and exaggerated, which that is definitely another issue too. Now, on the other hand, do I think that Rocksteady, the makers of the Batman Arkham series, has the possibility of being as bad as we have found all the other video game companies have been? Sure, it's totally believable, but there kind of needed to be a better presentation here, and this is inherently what happens as a problem with the believe all women concept. And first of all, the fact that it's incredibly sexist that it's believe all women, but even if you expand that to believe all victims or believe all accusers, you are definitely, with the Me Too movement, opening yourself up to people who are just straight up liars, who are crazy, who don't see reality for the way it really is. These numbers seem to speculate as many as 20% of all humans on the planet are just pathological liars or narcissists and will just lie for their own benefit. Like, the human species has never struck me personally even as being particularly truthful. And so,
You like the cold?
yeah.
You like the cold?
You have to really take all these accusations with a grain of salt, even if it does turn out that a lot of them turn out to be true. Or at least mostly true. Alright, I can see the beginning of the end now. Gamma Sutra has this article I was talking about. Epic is hosting a Fortnite tournament themed around its legal battle with Apple, which again just is not really making Fortnite look good. I feel like they have made a huge mistake in their branding of this to make it feel like to make it appeal to their child.
Prepare yourself.
Let's see. Yeah. It seems like Fortnite is trying to just win the hearts and minds of their child Fortnite fan players,
You like the cold?
but they are really failing to. I'm a little surprised that won. They're really failing to win the hearts and minds of the adults, who would potentially.
I'm very sorry.
They would have potentially been the jury on some potential future lawsuit. So when if this ever does make it to court, which Epic I think is wrongly gambling that this will actually never actually make it to a court case, I think Epic is going to be very much shocked. On the other hand, Epic seems to have been very successful as far as winning court cases, so maybe they just have really good lawyers, and maybe their lawyers told them, we've got this whole case in the bag, or we've got some secret trump card that we're going to play, which literally the trump card might be President Trump, in the sense that he probably doesn't like Apple that much. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Chess++, which looks like a single screen puzzle game. It's an interesting looking game. I'm not sure if this actually is something people would want to play, like a three-dimensional chess. The idea of 3D chess is always an intriguing concept on the face of it, but never actually implemented well. This is $2.99, English only. I'm gonna put this on the follow list and see what people say. Although it also really is not the kind of game that deserves to be early access. There's like no reason why it wouldn't be a fully completed game. I guess the other question would be like the AI, because it's a single player game only.
Guns speak. You just gotta listen.
So yeah, if there's only one AI and it's actually really bad, then that'll be an issue too. TechRaptor has an article here. We're getting few TechRaptor articles today. Next gen Ubisoft Collector's Editions won't have discs on Xbox. Which means I guess you would just be buying Collector's Editions for the items. Let's see. Yeah, you're still getting a digital key to redeem instead of a physical disc. So it's not the idea that the collector's editions are just going to be all the collectibles that very few people actually want. It's just that they're cheaping out and not making any discs in the Xbox games. That seems fairly crazy.
Gotta reload.
Do I want to wait till 9th turn to play this guy? I don't think
How's
so.
everyone doing tonight?
Time to dance.
This won't be affecting the PlayStation versions, which honestly I think PlayStation downloads are probably a little slower than Xbox downloads. And I think that PlayStation Network goes down a little more often than the Xbox versions. If this is Ubisoft trying to like make news to avoid and cover up controversy around Ubisoft, they're a little too late on that, because people who are going to forget about the Ubisoft controversy probably have already done that. And so otherwise this just comes off as being fairly bad news for anybody that doesn't have a really great internet, which nobody in the United States has really great internet. So that's just one more reason to not play a Ubisoft game, at least getting collector's editions. Their better move would have been to say, we're going to sell the collector's editions gameless, that way you can pre-order the game, and then if the collector's editions get delayed due to the pandemic, you can still play the game on day one. Also, it allows us to lower the price of the collector's edition by some small amount. They could lower it to make it sound like it was a better deal. Let's see.
I see to the ends of the world.
Deal 1 damage to an enemy follower. And evolve.
I'll lay a flower in your memory. That voice! I hear the world's voice for the world! Gotta reload.
Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called Spacebar at the End of the Galaxy, which is a terrible name because it sounds like space bar as in the space bar in the keyboard. And it looks like it's tagged with nudity and a dating sim, and I didn't check that first. And it looks like it is just a visual novel for $4.49, English only. Now this isn't a Japanese adult visual novel, which we have not seen any of those today. But it is an adult visual novel, so we should keep that in mind. In fact, we've seen fairly few Japanese games except for the RPG Maker free games that were released. Next we have Mystery Case Files, the Harbinger Collector's Edition from Big Fish Games, selling for $12.59. So that Big Fish Games does seem like they're back in the business of
I will never lose heart.
of putting out one hidden object game every
Enough of this indulgence!
every week or so.
My power is waking! Time to dance!
Big trouble now.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called The Bonfire 2 Uncharted Shores, which is mixed, and it looks like it's a fairly blurry, zoomed out management city sim game. Well, that does kind of make it feel like it has a slightly different art style. It's not particularly interesting. Like, you can see that the text is like really zoomed out, and it feels like you'd be zooming in and out a lot. $10.79, bunch of languages. I don't see any interest there. That was kind of the problem with the Cities game that I played, was that it was just so zoomed out that I couldn't read anything because I was looking at it on a TV monitor 10 feet away, which I do intend to try and fix that. That is a partial goal here, is
This one's for
with
my
my
family.
new PC build, is I'm going to try and have
Fire.
a third monitor that is on a swing arm that is right in front of my face. So well, it probably won't always be right in front of my face, but it very possibly will be to the side of me, so if I need to see anything I can turn to the left, although that might be distracting too, and it might be better if there is literally just a monitor right in my face and then 2 or 3 monitors on the wall 10 feet away, and that way I could have chat and other things happening on those monitors. Not even sure how many monitors I could really plug into the RTX 2080 without running into trouble. I've kind of given up completely on going single screen on most games,
You just gotta listen.
and it doesn't seem like that's really affected anything. Of course, if I was going to play a brand new like ray tracing game, I probably would still go into single monitor mode, and disable the other monitors. See, and this is a card, this robotic engineer, that was added a while ago, and the new expansion seems like it's going to integrate that concept of him, because he's driving a car that's like a robotic car. Next we have a game on Steam here called Chess Knights Shinobi, which kind of feels like 3 different very distinct terms. And it does seem like it's suffering from dark screenshot syndrome. But I don't know, there might be something here. It's rated positively. I'm going to put it on the fall list. It's early access for $1.19, English full audio. It's also a game called Chess Knights Viking Lands, and just seeing that alone, I'm going to then take it off the fall list. Because if they're selling me two of the exact same game, I have no interest.
Go with the flow.
The CEO of YouTube is once again being a pain in the butt. She's talking about the California wildfires, which only really affect her and other people. But the more important thing here is she's promoting a trend on the rise of FarmTube, reading more about creators that are giving the YouTube community a first-hand look at life on a farm. Farmers in general these days are owned by mega corporations and super rich, that they try to play and make it seem like they are poor, starving farmers that absolutely need subsidies to survive, and there is perhaps some truth to the idea of the benefit of subsidies, but there is also a lot of exaggeration, in my opinion, there too. A lot of risky business taking. I would say, just as a matter of national security, there should be a lot less corn subsidizing and growing of corn, and a lot more rice growing and tofu growing, and just like entire educational and nutrition systems getting more Americans, more people in the United States to eat rice and eat tofu with every meal, instead of having high fructose corn syrup put in everything. And there needs to almost certainly be major limitations on how much sugars and everything, and how addictive sugar really is, which they kind of refuse to really admit how bad that is. But yeah, it is kind of ridiculous to think of the idea of there being a major growth in people who want to watch farmers on YouTube. Almost certainly that's 9-year-olds, that's kids watching farm things, and that fad will swing very wildly to something different very quickly.
I didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. From the perspective as a video game critic on YouTube, the idea of everybody all of a sudden getting into farming seems completely ridiculous.
Gotta reload.
Okay.
Cutting across.
Do I want to attack or do I want to defend?
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
Next we have a game on Steam called Streamer Life Simulator, which seems to be a low effort asset flip game, troll game, joke game. There's a strip club in the demo. There was a mouse pad with an anime girl on it here. $16.99 is way too expensive for a joke troll game like this.
Tough crowd.
Next we have a joke game called Pre-Shave, which seems to be a game where you're trying to shave as a particularly hairy person. Now they're saying as a brown man. In all fairness, there are plenty of non-brown men who are very hairy too. So it does seem like a saving situation. And yeah, certainly if you are very hairy, you can shave your face fairly easily and draw the line there, and that's a reasonable amount of maintenance that most men have to deal with. But if you start to say, hey, am I going to get my chest, that's a lot more square footage that you're going to have to focus on then. And if you try to shave areas like your back or your arms, it's a much different experience at that point, and it's a lot more difficult to get your back without somebody helping you, and at some point you're literally having to have somebody just like shave almost all your body. And women are not completely immune from that. Women often have to shave eyebrows and even mustaches if they're fairly old or maybe an alcoholic. There's some medical conditions there. They have to shave their legs if they want to, and that's a lot of square footage too. And shaving a face and shaving legs are, from what I hear, completely different experiences because of just the angles and such. There unfortunately is not really a solution to the problem either, because while there is a laser hair removal process that's fairly expensive, it only lasts about 3 years, and I'm not sure it even works that well. And it is, I think, worth mentioning that humans actually have much thinner and blonder hair than, say, a gorilla, which have about the same amount of hair follicles as a human do, but theirs is much darker. So we definitely could be walking around as humans looking like gorillas. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Dread X Collection 2, which looks like it's a shooter game, but it's tagged as a puzzle game, and it seems like there's just several different games mixed together here. 12 horror games made in 10 days, so it's like a game jam game, except for all of them are being bundled and sold instead of giving away for free for $8.99. And it's English full audio. Let's see what the reviews are on Dread X Collection 1. Mostly positive, came out May 26. Yeah, I just don't think this works as a concept, frankly. I can see when looking at the screenshots of why I would have rejected Dread X Collection 1, and it really is kind of just the exact same concept in Dread X Collection 2. Like, none of these games are going to be that long or that good to justify the price of $8.99.
I'm so lonely.
See, this next game's name alone is barely YouTube family friendly. Although, arguably, at a certain point, perhaps what is YouTube family friendly may have shifted a little bit here. From Pin in Apple Studio, we have a game here called Sweet Story Wet Bottom Pie, which you never want a soggy bottom in your pie. And it does look like it is a match 3 game that does just have like sexual content in it. Although it's not even tagged with nudity. It's 79 cents. It's got a bunch of languages. And it looks like it might have a feeding minigame. It's something similar to the groping minigame. But yeah. I don't think that there's a real game there. Not enough of a game to get over that name. That name is actually a bad seller because it's just so extremely at that point of being obscene or approaching obscenity that you wouldn't want a game by that name in your library, even if your library was full of a bunch of adult visual novel games or adult games in general. Right, so if I do this and then evolve this, I can have an early 5-5. Next we have a game on Steam called Splinter, which they say is a first-person view full motion video game. Looks to me like it's suffering from dark screenshot syndrome, and there's a lot of screenshots here of what don't look like full motion video. It's $9.99 English full audio, being compared to The Layers of Fear and The Witness, two very different games. A first-person psychedelic movie embedded in a 3D environment. Yeah, I don't think I'm sold on that one.
Let us make our eternal vows. Boing.
Let's see.
Want to play? 1, 2, boing.
I feel like they've changed some of the voice acting now, too. I feel like it's now in English, whereas it was in Japanese only before. So, Shadowverse does feel like it kind of moves sort of slow with its expansions as far as localizing them. Which isn't a terrible idea, because then that inherently gets everybody on the same server playing the same cards, even, and you don't have to have that delay that you often would have had in other games. Next we have a game on Steam called Discovery Yard Investigation, which looks like it is just walking around in a puzzle environment with not much else to do. Like, it looks like it might be just a puzzle adventure game for $4.99 English and Portuguese Brazil. I'll put it on the fall list. We'll see. See if there's a game there. Let's see. 2 from all the Shadowcraft cards in your hand.
The miracle of love.
That didn't quite work as well as I had hoped it was going to.
You're mean.
Next we have a game on Steam called Super Nate Adventure, which looks like it is a straight up Super Mario Brothers game with 12 different levels, which is not enough levels for a modern game unless you're going to put this out for free. that was one of the things about Camera Obscura that was just part of the problem too, is that even compared to Super Mario Bros. 1, it had considerably less content and challenges around it. There were no like turtles really, there was just the slimes, there was no floating fire pits, there was no fanfare when you beat a level, there's just kind of nothing at all there. This and then this and then evolve this again.
I'll show you.
Attack that.
But I walked the edge.
And this.
Living it too proud.
And then return. Yeah, as for Super Nate Adventures at $2.99, it's too expensive. But if you had given 100 levels and it had looked like this for $5.99, I would be more realistic. Or if they had given 50 levels, I guess at $2.99, I might be willing to pay that much. 12 levels, however, is just far too low. Even if they were really, really long levels, which then that kind of violates the idea of a Mario Bros. Game. Super Mario Bros. Game. Gamma Sutra has an article here. March Capital establishes a $60 million game investment fund, which on the face of it, that sounds like a good idea. In actuality, it's probably not as great of an idea as you would think.
May all life prosper and be blessed.
And here we have Lucifer. We're playing.
Glory.
He healed me for 4 at the end of the turn. I think if he evolves, he would do 4 damage to the enemy. TechRaptor has an article here. Battletoads NES Legacy cartridge collection announced as a new game launches. So I assume the NES cartridge Legacy collection, it's $100 and it'll ship out, and I assume that's just going to have Battletoads 1 on the cartridge, if not maybe a selector screen between Battletoads 1 and a Battletoads 2. If there was a Battletoads 2, I don't even know. And then there's also a vinyl soundtrack that's being sold for $42.99. They definitely are trying to make a buck out of this. Let's see. Some of the zombie.
What do you think you're doing?
And in the turn. And this just plays on the 10th turn. Whenever you play a card, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. Whenever you play a card, if there are no followers in your deck, recover 1 play point. So she has like absolutely no followers in her deck at this point, and she's just going to keep on playing the same things over and over again, trying to do as much damage as possible. And 1 turn hit, 1 turn victory.
You're too strong.
Yep, we saw her losing a lot more as soon as I stopped playing the Forcecraft cards. And I don't think we're going to be able to play each of the hero classes. We've probably only got 1 or 2 games left. TechRaptor has an article here. Gunfire Reborn, new hero and hard mode released. Which, I don't know a game named Gunfire Reborn. So, that becomes very useless information.
Prepare for defeat.
Even if I'm scrap, I can still fight.
I don't know why it just showed me a chest. Unless I just won something for just playing a certain number of games unranked. Or unless I'm gonna lose a chest reward if I don't win in this game. TechCorruptor has a game here, article here. The Ambassador Fractured Timelines reviewed, which is a game I've never heard of. Let's see what they had to say. They said it's a 6.0. It's not a bad game, but it is dreadfully boring. Pros are tight controls, which is always a good idea. And fun retro aesthetic and varied environments. Honestly, I think far too many games try to have a fun retro aesthetic, and it's really just a sign of laziness at this point. The cons, the lack of enemy diversity. I would say playing Shantae Risky's Revenge Director's Cut, there early in the game definitely felt like there was not enough variety in the enemies, and even in the mid game to late game where I am now, there's a slight lack of variety, but it's not terrible. Let's see.
I'll show you something nice. No!
Sorry, just got quiet there trying to play the game, trying to actually win. Next we have Samurai Jack Battle Through Time, which was rated very positively. And even though you could make the argument that Samurai Jack is not relevant, and it's kind of one of these stories that is annoying in the fact that you're never really going to get that final battle where Samurai Jack just wins and the story is done, and so it's just going to go over forever. This is $39.99, English full audio with a bunch of other language supports. I'm going to put it on the wish list, but I would say this probably is one of those games that I would more expect someone to gift to me than I would actually make that initial decision to purchase for myself, unless I just run out of other things to buy.
Let me take the lead.
Actually, I can do this. No, that'll work fairly well. I don't think that there's really anything else to say about the Samurai Jack game, though. It really is in the same category as, say, the SpongeBob SquarePants game for me. Like, I didn't watch a lot of Samurai Jack. I maybe saw half of one episode, and I thought it was a generally cool concept, but not something that made me want to run out there and ensure that I have had covered and played. Or it's not, the cartoon wasn't something that I actually wanted to make sure I watch all the episodes for. What's this one called? A Beast Dominator?
The void will be there for me. Let me take the lead.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Crisis Remastered releases September 18th as an Epic Games Store exclusive. So, yeah. Once again, a potential exclusive game that could irritate people. Then YouTube advertisers tweeted something. Here are the people that they're promoting. on June 25th, and you can see Rhett and Link, and I literally could not name any of these other characters on YouTube. And even watching Rhett and Link, Good Mythical Morning, I know that they're far too corporate and shouldn't be the people in charge or celebrated as YouTubers. But what they tweeted 10 hours ago, you want to cook up a storm with your video content. In this interview with Gordon Ramsay reveals how taking a different approach on YouTube helped him reach 2.5 billion followers, which B is gotta be the wrong number. Because PewDiePie, I think, only has 50 million followers or something along that line. So that they've just put the complete wrong number there. There's only 7 billion people on the planet. To say that nearly a quarter of the entire population of Earth is following Gordon Ramsay on YouTube, that seems completely unrealistic.
Swallow the whole world.
Let's see, do we want to evolve this? But also, this whole point is kind of stupid. It totally makes sense that Gordon Ramsay would get a lot of followers on YouTube as a celebrity, as somebody who has like 2 or 3 Fox channel shows and production companies behind him promoting him. No surprise one bit that people would want to at least check him out. I've definitely seen Gordon Ramsay's content on YouTube, and it is at best okay, at worst fairly boring and not interesting to watch. It's not good cooking YouTube footage often, because he's not like teaching people how to cook things that they'd actually cook, and he's not consistently putting out enough recipes that he would catch people with recipes that they want to cook. It's not good entertainment coverage, because he's typically not acting as the Gordon Ramsay that you see on Fox, where he's yelling at people, unless you're just seeing reruns that are being posted on his channels of things he did on Kitchen Nightmares. So yeah, he really is a terrible YouTuber, and yet he's getting celebrated by the big people in charge of YouTube because they're frankly idiots and don't know what they're doing. Gamatsu has an article here, the same article. Crysis Remastered for PS4, Xbox One, and PC launches September 18th. It's currently available for Switch, which is to say it is a PC exclusive on the Epic Games Store, but you can still play on the consoles all you like. And wanted to come over here and check out some things. And we have just about 5 more tabs, so there's no reason to play anymore. Here we have a game called Death Cars, DETHKRZ, and it just doesn't look visually polished enough for a racing game. I think it's $4.68 English full audio. Let's see, 12 cars, 4 racing environments with 3 tracks. So that's 12 tracks. They made me do math to figure out how many tracks there are. Now we also have Super Lucky's Tale on Steam, which I feel like this had come out, but maybe it was an Epic Store exclusive. And I'm not sure Super Lucky's Tale is good or not, or if it's one of those bad games that looks like it potentially could be a good 3D platforming game. I've been sorely disappointed by 3D platformers recently, trying to play a lot of them. I didn't really like A Hat in Time. I didn't really like Ukulele, the first game. So And I recently watched like Banjo, Donkey Kong Country 64 or Donkey Kong Country, whatever the first Donkey Kong game was. That was the 3D collectathon platforming game, and watched a tool-assisted speedrun of that. This is $39.99. That's fairly expensive too. See, and they're saying it's exactly like the two games I definitely didn't enjoy playing. English full audio. And I never actually played Donkey Kong 64, and I feel like I very possibly wouldn't actually enjoy it if I tried to play it. And frankly, I would have no way to play it without just emulating it. Okay. So, I don't think there's going to be any new flares. I think all the flares are fairly limited, and maybe you get some new flares when there's a new story mode. But I probably do have a new emblem available to me that I unlocked. Hopefully it's marked as new, if that is the case. There definitely are emblems that look new, but frankly there's just so many emblems anyways that I could simply be forgetting them. Alright, nope. We do have one new Baron the Free Bandit. So we did earn that. And we're at like 41 victories in ranked matches with that. And if I actually did get a new character leader skin, I don't know what that leader skin would have been. I probably didn't get a new leader skin. I probably got a new sleeve. Yeah. Which is all the way over here. It kind of feels like all the rewards should be kind of hidden in other places. Like their interface could use some work. Yeah. So I got this Bunny and Baron Free Bandits. So Bunny and Baron are a Bonnie and Clyde character. This sleeve I actually think is pretty bad, because when you have this on any colored background, if you have like a green background, her hair blends in. If you have it kind of in an orange background, this kind of blends in. If you have it in a blue background, this kind of blends in. So there's no easy way to have this card back and have it stand out. The best they could have done is had a very bright white like border around the edge, or at least a thicker border around this. And the border art and the border colors don't seem to have any kind of consistency to them at all, which is nice. For a real world game, that would be really nice. For a digital game, it's obvious that you would want that to happen. And then, let's see, treasure chests. Tell me about the treasure chests. Victory rewards are treasure chests until 2:59 on August 30th. Today is August 29th. So apparently you're just going to get treasure chests for winning. So now is the time to play in ranked. Like, that's only ranked too. It's not unranked matches. Whereas there's no arena going on or anything else. So now is not the time to play the solo mission, even though they put out a new solo mission. Now is the time to play ranked. I'm up to 9,000 gold also, but I also have daily missions that are solo missions, which I need to get through all the solo missions so I can uncheck the box. So I stop getting solo missions and start getting just regular missions. TechRaptor has an article here as we wrap up. 505 Games sticks to the no next-gen upgrade for control owners. And that it sucks for me. I don't know if that's particularly any worse than anyone else, but it sucks that I got control on the Epic Game Store for free because I bought a video card, a $500 video card. And now, not only did I have to get that game on a storefront I didn't want to own it on, but I am also not eligible for the upgrade. This is a very worse experience than the last time I bought a video card and got The Witcher 3 on Good Old Games. At the very least, when I got The Witcher 3 on Good Old Games, there was a ton of upgrades, and Good Old Games is DRM free, and they tried really hard to treat their customers right. 505 Games is definitely not doing that. TechRaptor has a review for Battletoads, so let's hear what they have to say, since I've heard Giant Bomb and Jim Sterling both say they really didn't like it. Let's see. TechRaptor gives it an 8.0, which is better than average. That means it's a good game. Battletoads might just be summer's sleeper hit despite some shortcomings. It's a punchy brawler with insanely charming animations and generally funny humor. Pros are the cartoon art style and animations, great cutscenes and humor, main cast's vocal performance, and the fun beat-em-up segments. The cons are some subpar minigames that affect the pacing, and a few annoying enemies, and it needs a combo list. So yeah, that puts me in a weird position. Do I believe TechRaptor? Which I probably do, over Jim Sterling and Giant Bomb. But I don't know. Jeff Gersman of Giant Bomb saying Battletoads was bad. This is the problem. I shouldn't believe any of them. I should just play the game and buy the game, and that's really what it's getting down to, is that if I'm going to believe anybody, I should believe people that just put reviews on Steam and bought the game. Normal people, not crazy people that have the voice of the people, or pretend to be the voice of the people by having podcasts. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. A short story game called Rainy Season for PC is now available. It's an hour-long game about family spending time at home during the rain. Interesting. It's $3.99 and definitely feels Japanese. This might be a very interesting slice of life game compared to a lot of other slice of life games, in the sense that this is a slice of somebody's life that most people in the West aren't going to fully be able to know and guess. But they might see some similarities and see some differences there. Whereas this, for a Japanese audience, might be so commonplace slice of life that they may not relate to it. In that case, it doesn't have full audio, and for an hour-long game, I kind of feel like it should have full audio. But yeah, the price seems relatively cheap, although I still probably would want to get it on a discount. It's rated very positively. I'm going to put it on the follow list just to think about it a little bit more. Almost certainly nothing is going to happen here. The animation style seems to be kind of experimental, in the sense that I bet the animator didn't know what they were doing as far as 3D modeling. But yeah, that looks like something to consider, at least. Gamma Sutra also had an article here. A blog, Game Refunds and the Hidden Cost of Getting to Net on Steam. Which I guess getting to net, it means making profit, as for compared to gross profit, which then you have to subtract the costs. There's definitely, I imagine, a lot of points here that are probably just direct complaints about the fact that Steam allows refunds in general, because let's face it, at the core, a significant portion of even AAA game developers all the way down to single indie developers would love to just have no refunds as a policy in all game storefronts. And that's true for like pretty much any seller of anything, is they would all love to just say no refunds ever and not deal with it and rip off people effectively. Well, that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, which there are no new Humble Bundles, which then that brings me to my Twitter feed, of which I imagine there aren't going to be too much. Apparently a PlayStation 3 game was released yesterday called Shakedown Hawaii. That sounds crazy. I'm gonna throw it out there that right now would be about the time to read the 20th Discworld book Hogfather, or watch the BBC miniseries that was that I think you can watch on Amazon Prime. It is kind of a softer Nightmare Before Christmas type Halloween miniseries. It's not really very scary at all, and yeah, I am suggesting this, of course, if you have kids, or if you just want to watch something that is more kids focused. But yeah, I really enjoyed it watching the BBC thing. It also is weird, and I personally love weird because weird is different and it's fairly boring. Like every October, as we're getting close to October, we're not that close, but it does kind of become the same thing where you're ending up watching the same horror movies over and over again, marathoning like the Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or series like that, or you're struggling very much to try and find something that is not something you've seen before as far as a horror movie, and often having to watch a significant amount of garbage horror movies to even find potentially one that's good. And then if you are going down the horror element, it is pretty much just all horror. There's very little spooky Casper style stories out there, something that would be more kid friendly and appropriate. And like I imagine there are some Halloween versions of series out there that have like a Halloween episode, and there's some animated Halloween movies that are probably alright, like Hotel Transylvania, I guess would be a good one to marathon. But it is still fairly much a struggle to find enough to even fill the October month with horror stuff, or Halloween style stuff. And then as soon as October is over at this point, a lot of times you're already into the point where you're going to just start seeing a ton of Christmas stuff. They don't even bother to do anything Thanksgiving wise anymore. So like you'll start seeing just Christmas movie after Christmas movie after Christmas story after Christmas story for 2.5 months. Although this year I have no idea what Christmas is really gonna look like, and what Black Friday is really gonna look like, and what shopping's really gonna look like. A lot of people are gonna be super broke. A lot of people were always super broke, and they finally realized it due to the pandemic. A lot of people are probably gonna be fairly careful about what they spend money on. And I wouldn't be surprised if Christmas gets canceled for a lot of kids, or effectively gets canceled. On top of which, I guess with all the homeschooling and virtual learning stuff, there's probably a lot of parents that are not going to be pleased with their kids by the time Christmas runs around. Anyways, before we wrap up, here's that game Shakedown Hawaii, which apparently is a PlayStation 3 game. That, yeah, it says it's on the PlayStation 3. So, I don't know if that's a re-release of a PlayStation 3 on PlayStation 4 or what. So, now I'm in this weird position as I wrap up here, where I need to play 7 story matches and get victories, and I'll probably end up spending the rest of the day doing that, when really I would prefer doing pre-recorded footage with the Shantae series, but I don't think I'm going to have a choice there. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.